I make a motion to call the,
Oh, sorry. Hold on.
Might be 1 minute early too.
All right, we should be all set, but you got a minute. 1 minute. It's amazing how long a minute takes.
we should all meditate.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Forgive me, people at home, for wrestling my papers for just a moment. I know how that is annoying over the microphone. But I want to find the draft of the information from Nikon. Yeah.
Some can't find it. I can share with you online.
I have it printed out. I was so
Oh,
scared.
wait, is that it?
I dropped it. No, that's reserves legal.
Oh, that's.
It looks like that, though.
We're good to go.
Okay, thank you.
I make a motion to open the workshop for the meeting. Second,
I have a second.
roll call, please. Now, quiet in the room, please.
Trustee Lickett.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Does anybody have anything to disclose regarding the workshop item before us?
Not the workshop.
Okay.
I do not.
Okay, I do not. Dorothea, do you want to read or give us highlights?
Highlights, let me
This is
see.
the open meetings law compliance that we are required to read, so.
All right, I've read a few things here. Speakers must step to the front of the room if physically able. Alternatively, they may provide comments from where they are seated. If an attendee is participating via web conference technology, such as Zoom, the clerk will announce how attendees should signal if they wish to comment. This may differ by platform, but it typically comes through the raise the hand feature, which we are using Zoom. So if there is someone in the virtual world who would like to speak tonight, please raise your hand. If you'd rather I ask the question, put it in the Q&A. If you put it in chat, I don't even look. Thank you. Let's see here. Speakers must be recognized by the presiding officer. Speaker must limit their remarks to 3 minutes on any given topic. Let's see. Let me get to the good one. Speakers must observe commonly accepted rules of courtesy, decorum, dignity, and good taste. If printed materials or other materials are provided by attendees during the meeting, they must be submitted to the village board with optional distribution to audience members. All materials will be part of the public record. Private distribution of materials to audience members only is prohibited. And thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, welcome, everybody. This is a special scheduled workshop regarding short-term rentals. I know we all sort of use the terms Airbnb or Vrbo, but those are brand names. So we're sort of using the general term of short-term rentals here in our village. This is really an opportunity for us to create a dialogue. It is a workshop, so no big decisions are going to be coming out of this evening. It's really to listen and learn from all of you and bring this back to the board at some point. So with that being said, I know, where did this material come from?
That is material we are able to gather today on regulations given
Oh,
by
okay, just so
the
I,
agencies that do the short-term rentals.
okay, so this is what the board has, okay.
Yep.
For us. So I know that there were concerns raised by a resident and some other residents also regarding short-term rentals in our village and, you know, consequences, what it meant for the village. I think this, again, is an opportunity to look at all sides of this and listen and speak with each other. So with that being said, I know, do we want to just open it up, first of all, to the public, or do you want to have the board, do we have any comments before we begin? I'm thinking they're all here to, you know, weigh in on
I'm
things.
just wondering if we want to clarify that there are really two separate meetings here, and this one is specifically about the short-term rental code.
It's a
And then
workshop.
at 6:30, there will be another meeting starting with the regular agenda items, just to clarify.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so it's a double header tonight. Yeah. And also, thanks for saying that, because bear in mind that we do have to switch over to our regularly scheduled public board meeting at 6:30. So we will have a hard stop, probably 6:20, 6:25. Just bear that in mind. And so we do ask everybody who wishes to speak and weigh in on this. You heard, state your name, your address, and also you get about 3 minutes. So everybody gets a chance to speak up and be heard. I think that's important. So I guess with that being said, unless you have any other comments, I think, you were all here and we appreciate that. So who would like to speak about Airbnbs? Yes, come on up. How you doing, Art?
Good, how is everybody?
Fabulous.
As far as starting, we haven't started yet, because I'll make sure I get my 3 minutes tracked at my end, right?
Just in your timing, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Don't worry about it, we're timing.
If you can give me, no, what I mean by when does it start, right?
Yep, here we go.
Okay, start. Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, our Airbnb is mirrored, just noted, is a brand name for bed and breakfast. Aside from.
Mr. Pierce, if you can please give your name and
Art
address.
Pierce and State Street, right, okay. Is definitely it's a brand name for bed and breakfast, which is within the code. And that's sections specifically 210.-24.6, as a special permit is required by code. One of them, which would be real and brief here, is it has to be 2,500 square feet, 4 rooms for lodging, part of principal resident, and not specifically constructed for rental purposes. Parking area should be screened from adjacent properties. Sketch plan showing the floor plan should be submitted for approval, and it must comply with all the applicable provisions in New York State Uniform Fire Protection Building Code and definition of bed and breakfast therein. Facility must be inspected by the fire marshal every 12 months, and a certificate of inspection shall be posted upon the premise. The fee must be imposed. I read all that because there's questions, that I hear the word rental, short-term rental, but the bottom line is it's an Airbnb, is a bed and breakfast, which is within the code with very strict requirements. If for some reason the board sees it as another use, as an Airbnb, as a specific use, it's not listed. And for the code, once again, uses not listed are expressly prohibited in your code, and that's section 210-20.4. And concern about discussions, whether we have a referendum or a moratorium, which I strongly support rather than a direct vote by the board, as the board saw it necessary and critical for the consideration of residents across the board that the referendum take place, that the cannabis, whether dispensaries or for consumption establishments, I highly recommend and suggest that this is important. It's not more important for the residents to have a direct input because of the impact on the quality of life of all the residents that own properties within the village. Secondly, as far as the obligation of the trustees, they must provide and continue to provide as an obligation to provide for the high quality of life for all the residents of the neighborhood, to maintain the neighborhood character and respectfully submit that any Airbnb otherwise would be a major violation of your obligation to provide that and ensure that for the residents of the community. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Art. Appreciate that. Okay, anybody else wishing to weigh in on this? Give some thoughts? Oh, okay. Welcome.
My name is, thank you, Carrie Dagenhart, and I'm Shone Place, 30 Shone Place, 4 Shone Place, 32 and 36 North Main. So I actually live right now in Jersey City, and also Cape May and Stowe, Vermont. So I'm all over the place, and Pittsford, so I'm kind of a nomad. That said, when I'm not at my locations, what I do happen to do is Airbnb, a lot of them. Now, I don't have any cones with me tonight, and I didn't come prepared like that. But I wanted just to let you know that I do have experience with it. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I've never actually seen it be very bad for the residents. If anything, it's going to be bad for the homeowners. Sometimes, because sometimes people will mess with you, put too much in your toilet. You have overflow toilets and broken pipes and it does get used, things like that. But overall, I do believe that in Cape May, New Jersey is my favorite place to do Airbnb. It's because it's slightly regulated. The town makes money. Cape May, everything over there, it's a lot like Pittsford. It's beautiful. Except there, it's pretty much all tourists. It goes from 4,000 people to 40,000 people every summer. And so a lot of people make money, just renting other places. They've had their program with some success for 20 years now. The state makes a lot of money. The town makes a lot of money. The lower township where I am, they make money on the taxes. So all the taxes are paid because it's done through places like the Airbnb, not through the realtor, but the Airbnb pays for things like that. They take it out of your account altogether. Jersey City was a different case. Now, Jersey City made theirs illegal. And the reason why that they made theirs illegal, they said that it was bad for the residents. Well, as it turns out, the state of New Jersey, this was the largest campaign that the state of New Jersey ever saw for some, residents against Airbnb. But if you looked at the fine print on the posters, where you have to actually say who your sponsor is, it was all sponsored by the hotel unions of New York City. It wasn't sponsored by the residents who had just had their taxes increased to the largest amount in Jersey ever, because they hadn't done a reevaluation in 30 years, so all of a sudden everyone's taxes went up. So they were renting out their places. I guess that's one of the reasons why I think it's important to me and should be important to other people, is because of these rising taxes. Okay, people come, they don't have a lot of money, or some people actually, I don't think they have a lot of money, and so they rent out a room just for a few extra dollars to pay for their kids to go to school or something like this. And I think it defeats the purpose, and it helps the little guy when he's needed. So that's where I stand on it. But if you guys have any questions about it, I can offer you some guidance with what Cape May does, what Jersey City does. Feel free to email me. You guys have my info. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, Carrie.
Yeah.
By the way, my mother was born in Jersey City.
Oh, was she?
Yeah.
Where was she?
Yes,
If
Justin.
I may, do we have the last speaker's contact information, as she said? I would be curious
Yeah,
about
we have
different
the- we have your-
regulations
Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
that you think would work well.
Steve, you have the
in-
contact information, right? Yeah, you guys are in touch.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Yeah, sure. Please, come on up.
So my name is Cynthia Cooper, and I usually don't use my notes, but today I'm going to have to. The first thing I wanted to address were the 51 PowerPoint slides that are put up on for the workshop agenda, and I was expecting tonight to be an initial workshop, but it looks like somebody put a lot of time and effort into building a case against the short-term rentals without any discussion. I mean, 51, they're all
Can you
negative.
pause the timer for a minute, because we can clarify that for you, because this was put up by the village clerk, yeah.
Actually, I put that in the packet. I put that in the packet for knowledge for the board. I recently attended a conference. It was a major discussion at the conference, and this is information coming from NICOM that often advises local municipalities that we are a member of, and I wanted them to have the information from them as they start this process. So,
Thank you for clarifying that.
yeah, no, that is just information only for the board. and
Yeah,
the public.
and just let me add to that what NICOM is, the acronym. It's New York Commission of Mayors, so it's where we receive our training as elected officials, just so we know. Okay.
Great, thanks. But if anybody read the 51, they're all negative. It's all lawsuits. So what I did is I Googled Airbnb benefits to a community, and it was funny how the first article I found only had bad things to say about the short-term rentals. I wasn't surprised because it's a hot topic. It's a new industry. And it's a new way of helping families travel, and the negatives always seem to surface first around hot topics of today. I like what you brought up about the hotel industry.
Isn't that interesting?
When I looked closer at the website that had that first article, all the articles that they wrote were posted, were either clearly for or against a topic. So some organization had very deep pockets to have search words in Google to come up with Airbnb benefits to a community, and it just beat us all up the heck. So, and it was probably funded by the article that I read, and everybody knows it's the huge hotel associations, and there's more than one, and it's a huge lobby machine. They are the ones that are pulling the strings, and they are putting the pressure on New York City and New York State. So it's not new news. I mean, everybody knows this, or they're trying to, I don't know what they're doing. It's so obvious to everybody. So all you can do is a little bit of digging, and you can confirm that. So I wanted to be more realistic on where this PowerPoint information is coming from. So the Airbnb versus New York City, lots of PowerPoints on that, and Boston and other towns mentioned. We are not New York City. We are not Boston. We are the village of Pittsford. So let's focus on us. You know, what are we? We are a great village, we're great restaurants, businesses, we're made up of wonderful neighbors, wonderful neighborhoods. The local businesses and the people of this village have all been hurt so badly with the pandemic crisis. You can literally go around this entire room and everybody has their own story. My husband lost his entire business. He imported and sold to restaurants solely. Boom, gone. So we all love this village. This is our home. These are our neighbors. These are our friends. These are our streets. Not one of us would dream about bringing anything to the village except for something, well, wonderful. You know, I mean, it's our own neighborhoods. So I have a house manual that only promotes our local restaurants, businesses, and the activities. I have maps that show in place. I have the village streets that shows everything that the village has to offer. I also have a guest notebook that people write in the notebook for the other future guests to read of all the wonderful things they did within the village. And they all say, I ate a cold tower, oh, you gotta go to, get ice cream, and you got, oh, I went to this store and I went to that store, and it's wonderful. So I think what I do, which I think all of us do, is we're promoting the village and the village businesses. So over and over again,
Ms. Hooper, if you can start wrapping it up, please.
Your time's almost up.
Yeah.
Oh, can I come back up?
That'll be up to the board.
I would say it's a workshop. You have a couple minutes, a little few seconds here if you want to wrap it up.
So I get 100% families coming in, and they come in for weddings and big birthdays for mom and dad and all that. And all of us are middle-class Americans. We're just trying to use the great expenses of our homes to generate some, supplemental income. None of us are getting rich off this. And I think it's fair moving forward, if you consider doing any regulating of us or anything, to please look at the short-term and the long-term rentals, because both ways homes are using, or the homes are being used to generate income. And I think it's fair to look at also the people who rent their parking lot or their lawns for parking spaces, or they move out of their homes to rent during the tournaments. So let's.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Appreciate that. Anybody else wishing to speak, weigh in, give their thoughts, please? Yes. Hi, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Pete Zimmerman, and I live 17 Washington Avenue. And I don't have any notes, but I just wanted to, find out whether there was a way we could have a better understanding of what the specific concerns were. Because I'm a firm believer in, rather than being reactive, putting yourself in someone else's shoes and understanding what's worrying them. And there probably are some valid concerns. I mean, if we open our doors to allowing anybody to come and rent in our neighborhoods, there is potential concern for what people imagine to be the worst case scenario: parties, trash, people scoping out your neighborhood. And the board's going to be in a position of having to try and find that middle ground and bring the baby out with the bathwater as it pertains to taking something that can be really positive, as you've heard, for the community, and figuring out how to put some guidelines around it so that we can have the largest possibility of positive experiences and the lowest of negative experiences. People that Airbnb a lot, so my wife got into watching these people on YouTube that are coaches and talk about their experiences and all the tools you use to make yourself a 5-star experience. And there's a lot of things that could be considered in regards to creating short-term rental permits that could go into planning for, one example is there's a tool called a minute. It gets put in the house and it's a decibel meter. And so if you're renting to 4 people, it knows the average decibel rating. If it's louder than that, the owner finds out. It's a completely review-based system, which actually works really well. It's a very democratic way of kind of keeping things at high quality. So maybe we think about really creating a high-quality experience where you kind of get what you pay for. You know, we don't rent to anybody that lives locally unless we've really communicated with them and there's a reason. My house is sold and we can't close until this date. And the last thing I would say is the people that we rent to, it seems they're almost always here visiting family that live nearby, because the only options for accommodations here is to go to the Del Monte Lodge. And if you've got your family pet and your kids and you want the space to be able to have, not be, in mom and dad's house, but you want to have your family in your own space, but you can be a block or two away from them and you can wake up and have coffee easy on the porch. I think it lends a lot to continuing that sense of community. Because the option B is, the residence inn on Jefferson Road, which doesn't provide the same feeling. So just a few ideas that came to my head. Thank you for maybe the top one.
Great, thank you. Thanks for your input. So that's why we're having a workshop, so good. Next.
Is there a way to find out what the specific concerns were?
I think you're about to.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Hi, John.
John Lindbeck, 62 State Street. Subsequent to my discussion 2 weeks ago, I asked a couple of follow-up questions. And I specifically asked Jeff Turner if our code section 210-20-4C, which states that if a use is not listed in the code, then it's strictly prohibited. I said, why isn't that being considered? And he said, that's because our code enforcement officer has determined that there's no difference between short-term and long-term rentals. I think that's dangerous. Second of all, I want to address a comment that was made that a person has a right to make a profit off of their property. We establish residential zoning districts so that people can live in them. We establish commercial zoning districts so people can run businesses. I think you make your profit off your home by improving it and selling it. I don't want a motel 2 doors down from myself. And thirdly, I just want to remind the board that in about 5 hours of speaking with my neighbors over a couple of days, I got over 40 signatures of people who were in favor of establishing a moratorium until rules and regulations could be established. I understand the explanation that we got from the attorney that establishing a moratorium would be quite a lengthy process, and we'd be better off looking for some rational laws and regulations. So I would encourage the board to do that. Thank you.
Thanks so much, John. Appreciate that. Next up, please. Welcome.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Erin Eater, 5 Jackson Park. I actually own, with my partner Dee Dee, a home on Jackson Park that we have run as an Airbnb. Our experience, having been to other places and visited other towns, has been super positive with Airbnb as guests, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to create something like this here in Pittsford. I grew up here, went to high school here, Sutherland grad. I love this village. Dee Dee lives here as well. We love the village. We love the charm. We love the character. We love the businesses. We really want to promote people being able to appreciate the village in the way in which we also appreciate it. We completely understand that we do live in a neighborhood, we have neighbors, we are very conscious of the fact that Airbnb has checks and balances. When you go as a guest, you get rated. When you are a host, you get rated. There is also a way in which neighbors can rate houses on Airbnb. So there are many ways in which there is there's definitely responsibility for the guest to take care of the Airbnb rental and for the host to really take care of the rental. Also, if the Airbnb is beautiful, if it's well taken care of, it is something that people want to stay in. Our experience has been, 6 o'clock. Our experience has really been that we've had families come, people with their pets. One of our first guests was a family that was coming for a memorial service that couldn't happen during COVID. And the person who rented our home was so grateful to have a place to stay that we had some games just in the house for people. And she sent me a picture of her kids playing Twister on the floor of our Airbnb. And what she said was, thank you so much for giving them a respite from all the sadness that's around them. Now, I don't see that happening if they had to stay at the Jefferson Road, hotel. Or I think that all of the reviews that we have gotten have been wonderful. Our guest book is filled with comments of people who were so appreciative of the village, the businesses in the villages, the places that they could walk to, and the quiet neighborhood that they were staying in. We have rules set for our Airbnbs. Certainly, we understand that we want to make sure that the neighborhood is not harmed by people coming in. I do think that I forget somebody else's point, but there are the people that are mostly coming here are coming to visit family. We had a family, a couple with their 2 kids come from Dubai to visit family they hadn't seen in a couple of years. So they're traveling and wanting a home away from home in which we can provide. Let's see, we definitely take pride in our property. We want to make sure that
if you could wrap it up.
I can wrap it up, sure. Okay. Also, if we look at how many people are coming to Airbnb, we're not going to be inundated with Airbnbs and people. There's just not a market for it, right? So if the fear is there, I'm not exactly sure what the concerns are, but if the fear is that every street's going to have multiple Airbnbs, I don't see that happening in the future. And if you have any questions, I would love to talk to you. If anybody wants to come and visit and look through our Airbnb, we'd be more than happy to have you.
Do we have your contact information?
Yeah, I
do.
Dan's got it, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, and you have it as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to? Yep.
Can I just ask a question?
Please come up and state your name and, I know it's a whole thing, but this is how we do it.
I don't want to come up. My name is Kate DeMarco. I'm business partners with Aaron, and we have the Airbnb together. I was just wondering, am I allowed to ask everybody by show of hands if they've ever stayed in an Airbnb?
Sure.
Are you calling the board or calling the audience?
The audience, everyone in the room.
I don't have a problem with that. You know, it's a workshop.
I think
I mean, we're all
everybody
talking about
has.
this, so,
Okay,
you know.
that's a lot. I just wondered if it's, I think a lot like, my parents don't understand Airbnb. They think, it's some odd thing to have somebody come stay in your house. They just don't understand it. And I didn't really until we did it. But the way that things are set up, you have to abide by certain guidelines or people won't stay at your place. They just won't. And we have a neighbor that's next to our Airbnb, and she loves it. I don't know if she loves it, but she prefers it to, she lives on a street where there's rentals, and she prefers the guests that are staying at her house over say a long-term renter that causes problems and, that she's stuck next to. And she helps us keep an eye on things, and we have a good relationship with her. And I think she's learned a lot about it, and just that, there's benefits to it.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thanks for your input. Appreciate it. Anybody else wishing to weigh in? Yes, please come up.
Do I have to state my name? I don't really want anybody to know who I am. No, I'm okay. My name is Gene Cardamone. I have a property right now at 16 Lincoln Ave. Yes, those are the people that know me. I've been in the village for quite a while. I've done several renovations. I'm actually under John Lembeck. He was a building inspector when I was doing renovations. I did 73 South Main Street, which was a huge destroyed house. One of the oldest houses in the village. I restored it, brought it back to being a lady in the village. I did several $100,000 into it. I did sell it, and as John said, I sold it for a profit. I guess that's what we do. When you're in business, you do things for profit.
Gene, you have 3 minutes, so.
Okay. I also did another house at next door at 10 Lincoln, renovated that also. I guess my question would be, and right now I'm renovating a 3-family house that was a mess at 16 Lincoln. My question would be to the board, would the board rather have me rent to, it's a 3-family, I could rent to college students. I have a beautiful front porch. I would fear that they'd be playing beer pong every night outside. I think it would be very destructive to all the neighbors. So I think being an Airbnb person myself, staying there as well as running them, I think I agree with everybody else that said we're very hyper about who we rent to and why we rent it, and we expect good people to come. So we're over the top about who we rent to. So
Thank you. Thanks very much for your input. Anybody else wishing to weigh in? Some thoughts? Come on up.
Jim Schwab, and on Toby Road, I have an Airbnb. Just a couple of points I want to make. Do we know how many Airbnbs are in the village?
Steve, you had come up with.
Probably 9. I mean, there might be a few more, but the ones I've reached, I could find 2 websites with 9.
Okay, I didn't know, I was just curious, yeah. I think when issues are hot topics, I think sometimes we jump to a solution before there's a problem. So I wonder if there's even a problem. Are we aware of
That's why we're having a
problems?
workshop.
Yeah, but so I'm asking a question. Are we aware if there's any problems with short-term rentals?
Steve, how many complaints have you had? How long have you been building inspector?
Been here full-time just about 3 years, and not one complaint.
Okay.
Not one.
And there's 9 that you know of, and in our whole village, we have roughly 940 households. Yeah.
Someone in business, I'm always the guy in the meeting that's saying, hey, let's not go on opinions, let's go on facts. Because I have an opinion, we all have different opinions, but let's look at the facts. There's 9 Airbnbs, there's short-term rentals, there's long-term rentals in the village too. There's much more than 9 long-term rentals.
About a quarter, actually, of our housing is.
Yeah, so there's a lot of
and
landlords.
It's a stable
that
rental
own
population.
buildings in the village.
Mhm.
So I think that's a good thing. I think some other points I wanted to make. If you have a 2 or 3 bedroom Airbnb, you're not competing with a hotel. So you have families that come with parents, with kids, with sister-in-laws. By far and away, my guests are weddings, funerals, families dropping their kids off at one of the 3 or 4 universities, and people coming back for the holidays. 95% of the people who stay are those kind of people. I wouldn't change the game. I think it's un-American to change the game on people who have Airbnbs now in the village. I think if you're going to do something, you don't do a moratorium. You do something, but you don't change the game on them. That's to me, doesn't make sense. So I would reconsider that if that's under consideration. And I think you should speak to the business owners in the village too. I think, what do short-term renters do? They go out to dinner, they go to the boutiques, they get their hair blown out before the wedding, at the salons, they get their nails done, they order out, they patronize the businesses in the village. I think this would be a hit on the village businesses too, so that was my list. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your input. Very helpful. Anybody else? Come on up.
Hello.
Hello,
My
welcome.
name is Jennifer Simonetti. I also live off of Toby Road. I've had an Airbnb in my home for, I think, about 7 or 8 years. And what I want to say, I think my main point is that there are different types of Airbnbs. I own a 3,000 square foot house, and one of the rooms I rent out. It was an addition to the house. It's like an in-law apartment. And I live in the home full time, where my family lives. My kids go to Sutherland High School. And there's not a single guest that comes into this house without me bringing them in, introducing myself. They're there with me. They message me through the app, the Airbnb app. If they have questions, I help them. I've got a piece of paper on the bed that tells them the restaurants in Pittsford. Here's the great places to go, like cheapest, most expensive, different things here in the village to do. And I'd agree that these folks are coming into town and spending money here in our village. In all of the years that I've done it, not one guest has been a problem. I'm in the house with them, and they're there with me. I've never, ever had a problem. And I open it, I'm a teacher. I open it up all summer long and on weekends during the school year. So I have a lot of reviews on my Airbnb account. You can look at them. Very good people. And I guess that's another thing I want to mention is that folks who utilize Airbnb are open to this, right? Like someone who's not cool with Airbnb, they're gonna stay at a hotel, and they should, right? But if you want that like personal experience and the opportunity to like live as the community lives, then that's an opportunity that provides a different and unique experience for them. Just this last weekend, I was in an Airbnb. My son goes to Hartwick College. It was parents' weekend. It was not kidding. It was a yurt. It was a tent, like glamping. It was the bed, the foam. There was a heater in the tent. It was toasty warm. It was awesome. It was awesome. Beautiful hills in Hartwick. I'm not sure if you know the area. These are like unique opportunities that are provided to people right here in our village. They can take advantage of it, often for a cheaper price than a hotel as well. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for your input. Great. Anybody else wishing to weigh in? Some thoughts?
I actually will.
Okay.
My name is Brenda LaRocca. I am previous owner of 3032 Church Street. It was a true double. I started out with that property being owner occupied, and I had a long-term renter. And about a year later, I decided to get into Airbnb, which was really successful for me. I was a single mom and I had a kid going off to college. It was a great way for me to generate extra income. And I had a really great experience. I was a super host. I had people from all over the world who came here to the village. Fast forward, I just recently bought 5 West Jefferson in April and put my house up for Airbnb about 3 weeks ago. So my experience has only been nothing but families that come in. I've had a couple bookings since I put up. And again, it's families that are coming. So nothing but positive. I do want to point out that on Airbnb, someone did mention that the owner gets rated as the guest gets rated as well. But you can also do a government issued, before a guest is allowed to book, I want to have like a government issued identification. So I'm already knowing who's coming into my home. So I think that's really important to know that as well too. And like I think Katie suggested, I would be more than happy to have you come to my home too to see what that looks like as an Airbnb as well.
Thank you very much. Any other thoughts or input from the audience here? Well, I think it's been helpful.
One more thing is,
Oh,
I
yep.
think 9 people just spoke.
Pardon
If
me?
there's 9 Airbnbs, I think 9 of us just spoke. We're probably all here.
Okay. Good point. Okay. No, and we appreciate that. I think we've heard some really good comments and had some very good input. So I'd like to just bring this back to the board for, just some discussion about this and thoughts as we hear this from our community.
So we can talk now?
Yeah, I think so.
So thank you to all of you on all sides of the issue for coming up and speaking. I heard all of you and appreciate everything that you're saying. I do want to address a few things in particular. Mr. Schwab, you took all of my questions, and I found that offensive. How many Airbnbs do we have? Have we had complaints? Also, and Ms. Eder also spoke about this, a few of you spoke about this, my concern is also the businesses, and those people go and eat at the Village Bakery, and they go have breakfast at the Cole Tower and those kinds of things. There's some history that I do want everyone in the room to know, and that is that we went over, and so a couple of years ago, 4 years ago, we rewrote the code. We opened the books and we rewrote everything. And we looked at everything and we went over and over the Airbnbs. And that was with a very different board makeup than we have now. And we kept coming to the same conclusion. And the same conclusion, it was a long list of things. So we went through all the hypotheticals of what if we did outlaw these things? And what if we completely allowed them? We kind of talked about all scenarios. And we kept coming back to the same things, which were that it's virtually impossible to monitor it. So if we outlawed them, are you going to knock on everybody's door? Are you going to constantly monitor VRBO and Airbnb? And it just was impractical. The other was that we weren't getting any complaints. There were existing ones. We did have one complaint on Maple once. This was even before your time. And what it came down to was that we always arrived back at the same place, which was that sometimes my neighbors who live next door to me have a party and it's obnoxious and they keep me up at night and they've got college-age kids and they're home for vacation. And so your recourse is to knock on their door and say, hey, it's late, can you please keep it down? Or to call the police. And that's the same recourse that you have for somebody in Airbnb. But those people who rent an Airbnb are being rated by the owner, and if there's trouble, so there is some challenge for it. I took Ms. Eder's comment about there's not a huge market, we're not going to see a widespread, this isn't Cape May, right? The tourism doesn't boom in the same way. Yeah. But so that was a very interesting angle that we hadn't really thought, or we had never discussed. And I think was worth talking about it. Just so you know where I stand, I'm firmly against moratoriums unless there's imminent danger to someone. I just think the message it sends, and Mr. Limbeck, I respect your request, but I think that the message that it sends to the world is a really bad one, that stuffy Pittsford is closed for business. I just don't like that. The challenge I've thought a lot about that Mr. Schwab brought up about un-American, I think about that a lot, especially for people who already own them. Like, we're going to tell them that they can't, they've bought it, they've invested in it, they've run it, and now we're going to tell them they can't. I just can't see a practical way that you could, even if we wanted to, I couldn't see a way that would work for anybody. The other thing I want to underscore is collectively what so many of the owners have shown to us is that this is not the boogeyman from outside. These are our neighbors who own these, and single mother, I think you said you were, ma'am.
Yes.
And that's something we take very seriously. These are not anonymous hedge funds buying these things and trying to commercialize them and create a party house for college kids. I very much be against that. The last point I wanted to make, I have two more points I wanted to make really quickly. We can find an article that tells us that sidewalks are bad. We could find an article that tells you anything. So the article that we find that says that Airbnbs were bad, I could find you ones that said they're the best thing for our community. And so I'll read them and I'll take it into consideration, but I'm not going to base it on that. And to tell you the truth, I'm more inclined to not want people to rent their homes during the PGA than I am to Airbnbs. Because during the PGA, who's been on a guy's weekend with middle-aged men? It's a disaster. It's a disaster of debauchery. And that's what that event would be versus, people coming to town to see their family and that kind of thing. So I really thank all who spoke, and you've given us a lot to think about. And I just wanted to voice my opinion. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. I just want to, keep time here, so we have 10 minutes before hard stop. Lily, did you want to give your thoughts on this?
I don't, because there's a lot to, it's very complicated, as you well know. And so I feel that my role as a trustee is to weigh the needs and desires of the residents of the village and to be responsive to their concerns. So that weighs heavily on me. To also respect the investment that has been made by individuals. I think that if I have any takeaway from this evening, and that is that when the owners of the property live in the property and then have a certain amount of time during the year that they rent, that the oversight is more in keeping with what I think that I would like to see in the village, because our homes are so close together. We have small, intimate neighborhoods and are greatly affected by everything that happens in your neighborhood. And we have a very strong community spirit. So I think that when you are living in the home, and not necessarily like, as you, I'm sure, very well aware of the state regulations regarding B&Bs, which are regulated. And I know there has been a lot of conversation for people who own B&Bs as opposed to people who own Airbnbs who are not subject to the same regulations. As a village, we are very concerned regarding regulations due to responsibility, as we have seen that has happened in our village recently, as far as fire code, safety, and inspections. And those are not present in the Airbnb setting, or I should correct myself to say short-term rental setting. So that is something we would, as a village, want to look at, because that is a concern. So those are the types of issues that I would like to look at as we consider. I think that regulations should be considered because they are in place for B&Bs. And so I think a similar situation should be also for short-term rental. I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. And Justin, some
Sure.
thoughts?
I don't have a whole lot to share. I really appreciate seeing everybody come out here and hearing your thoughts. I wanted to echo something that Trustee Lampier was saying, and also something which is brought up by a couple of members of the public, that we do have codes in place relating to bed and breakfast, which are allowed by special permit in 2 different districts in the village. Some people with whom I've spoken are a little bit surprised that there really is no regulation whatsoever for short-term rentals. And I think that there is, this discussion helps out a lot. I think I need to go back and rewatch the videos and listen to it again to get all the comments. And I'd like to think about some regulations that are not overly restrictive on owners, but which make sure that we are able to be safe and responsible towards the neighbors and residents of the village.
Great, thank you. Yep. Is there, do we have comments also? Okay, because we have people
And then I have
also
one more
online.
follow-up.
Okay, and then we
Yeah.
have a follow-up by Trustee Keating. I might add something too. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mr. Marshall, you're able to speak?
Hi, thank you. This is Dave Marshall, 67 South Main Street. And I just want to say thanks, first off, for taking on this topic. I think it's a very critical consideration. I do think, just briefly, I haven't thought fully on it. I know that's what these workshops are for, but in the reading that I've done, I do think The delineation between owner-occupied and non-owner occupied should be a consideration to any degree of permitting process, whether or not it may be just for non-owner occupied versus owner occupied. I think that there should be some determination as to capacity within the village that we might find reasonable for both owner occupied and non-owner occupied. Having small kids in the village, one of the things I like is knowing who my neighbors are and knowing who they are consistently. So in a short-term rental, there is some uncertainty as to that versus a long-term rental. I don't think, though, that should be a decision alone as to not allow them, as much as it is a recognition that as a small village, the neighborhood feel, the families that we have in the community, and knowing who our neighbors are is a really critical component. But I also recognize that owner-occupied visitors have substantial value for us, both in increasing consumption, shopping, nightlife, or just frequenting our businesses. So I'm a proponent of allowing Airbnbs for sure. I think it's easier to consider on an owner-occupied basis than a non-owner-occupied basis, and I think in that instance, a permitting process might be appropriate.
Okay, I'm sorry, you were just running over time a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. Appreciate the comment. Any other comments online?
That's extra questions.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, great. I think this has just been really great, and I have really appreciated everybody's input. I think, and just to give you a little bit of background, before I moved back to Pittsford, I grew up here and then moved away, and the last place I lived was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Speaking of tourism. So it was a very different issue, and it was being addressed right when I was moving back. So it was a major issue, as Dan even mentioned. He said, no hedge fund managers are coming into the village and buying up blocks and, flipping these houses and making them into Airbnbs. That was happening in Fort Lauderdale, and it was absolutely changing the fabric of the communities and the neighborhoods. So what I've heard tonight is completely different. You're all stakeholders. You all care. You're all part of our community. You're all promoting our community. I've gotten such a different sense and perspective because you all showed up to share, why you're doing this and how this experience is for you, and hopefully the experience that you're sharing with our community. I do think we do need to take a little bit of a look at, maybe fire and safety. I think everything's solvable. Let me put it that way. I think it's all solvable. I think this is all a good thing. I think we can find our good balance here and move forward, really, together. So I want to thank everybody again for coming. We're pretty close to wrapping it up. And what we'll do probably is now bring this back to the board. Please stay in touch with us. Feel free to email us. Keep the dialogue going. We may even end up with another workshop if we start to think about possibly a little bit of regulation, if that's something that we're looking at, and get you all back in, hopefully. And Dan had one more comment too.
Really quickly, so one thing that occurred to me that is a solvable thing that we could do is, when the time is right, educate the community as to what escalation channels there would be if there was ever a problem. So, they're welcome to call the code enforcement officer. They could call the police if it's loud. Just putting out some information in that way, I think, would be helpful. The other thing that I would like to explore, and this is a half-baked idea, so I don't know if it makes any sense or not, is to have at a very sort of a voluntary registry so that we know, so that Steve, frankly, knows who to escalate to. So he's got Aaron's information, he's got Mr. Schwab's information, and that sort of thing. So that kind of thing feels like what the mayor was saying, solvable solutions that aren't invasive, but might alleviate some of the anxiety.
Thanks for that. That's a good comment. Yeah. Okay. Any last thoughts? We got one more minute. You're all good? Okay. Thanks again, everybody, so much. This was really helpful. Appreciate it. So I make a motion to adjourn. Okay, roll call.
Trustee Lightgev. Trustee Lampier.
Aye.
Trustee Keating. Mayor Plummer. Thank you.
When